Uh, so yeah, and going back to what I was saying about the definition of art in dictionaries, artificial, art being derivative from artificial. There have been more important truths, but those truths to be hidden and for you to discover through independent thought is a more it's a more inspiring process to go through than if a woman is found to be not found to be a virgin on her wedding day, stone her to death and dump her body on her father's doorstep. That's not just permitted by God; it's mandated by God. Or if a woman is not found to be screaming and crying out loud enough when being raped, then she's therefore an accessory to her own defilement and should be stoned to death too. Those are both in the Christian Holy Bible. Art does not represent, though art can portray. There's no religious people try to combat and debate what art is and why they think art's such a bad influence. But like I said, if you already have the parent teaching the kid, God will speak to you through the TV, then they've corrupted everything from. They've corrupted the kid. They've taught the kid something really fucking terrible. And the man-made quality of religion is something that religious believers themselves are running away from. They're running away from it like a person in denial, complete and total self-denial. How are we going to say this is? We want to recruit converts that spend their whole lives believing this belief system, and by saying that to them, well, it's man-made, artificial. Because then if they start to admit to those truths about where these texts, religious texts, come from and doctrine, then they'll be at least admitting to some, in principle, honest principles that might then get them to start to have certain debates where they do pitch art against art. But then the artists that I like and have always liked will come forward and say, our content is never said to be, mimic all the characters, play them all, be them all. They are all examples of behavior, for how to behave. They're all definitions of what beauty is for you. We're going to tell you what beauty is for you. They don't do anything like this. The church will tell you, while you're going through puberty, that unless you're married, you're damned to hell, unless you sign a contract at a uniting church to say that you won't fuck until you're married, and then you work at Capital Chemist, have Libby bread and tell you to be a child of God and to reassume your Christian rejected Christian education from your teens, while at the same time going home and having this hot steamy affair with your fucking pharmacist who's your boss by day and your nymph by night. I was like, well, according to the training that Elizabeth Bretton's now told me to try and believe in again, you're supposed to marry me as a virgin, or she's not to have taught me in the religion. So, yeah, but in any case, yeah, I'm completely against it because they don't have the integrity as human beings to go, yeah, our religion is man-made completely, because then it stands to be called bad art, like just really bad art. Like, okay, like there are black and white films from the 20s. The video quality is shit. There's like a sound overdub, but there's no speech. They're miming. Yet the storyline and the artistic content is better than everything that your entire religion, for which you have secret gatherings, has to say and stipulate. So religionists have to say that their religion is something more than art, only they can't do it in a coherent way. And that's why when they get involved in psychiatry as well, there is this impetus between the handshake between the Christian media, the religious right-wing media and press, and religious healthcare, big pharma, and psychiatry to say, well, let's call this form of art corrupt, when really their claims will all be representations of elements of their thinking that's fucked up and disjointed. Uh, okay, so now there's been a photo that I have this accessible on my Facebook account. It's me holding Hydra, my second cat, and it was based on a photo I took at a former house in Torrens. Uh, the shot of me holding Hydra, and I had it digitally. I photoshopped it so that I was standing behind myself on the lawn of my first backyard as a kid holding my first pet cat. Uh, and I had made it a bit of like the fur that my first pet cat had. So his name was Patch, and so I was dressed in black and white and had black and white cosmetics and black eyes, and I was holding Hydra, and Hydra's natural fur color was like the color of the tracksuit I was wearing as a kid. Now, the only response Roger seems to have from admitting to have said things that, in my case, were illegally and pedophilic. I don't know. I would say for everyone, in principle, you don't address someone and say, "Well, welcome to our staff team." I don't. Police checks as well. Like why? It was never said to me why they were always why they were done as rule of thumb in a pharmacy job. Uh, but that's another retail award wage pharmacy job. I think it's because Roger wants to control. Like he plays certain police members that don't have share his views on the drug war. For instance, um, there'll be police who will be having any use of their drugs dusted under the rug and no record and of thereof and things like that. Absolutely understand that type of arrangement. But as a yeah, his pedophilic shit is he's going to go what? So no father has given you directive lessons or instructions or anything. Like, well, no. I defended one step. I'd have to defend my mother from being hit by one stepfather, and he would verbally berate my sister and I, and then be at church reading the fucking Bible on Sundays, and then I'd get accosted by these middle-aged Christian women that smelt like cheese of some kind, saying, aren't you lucky, Lord Luke, that the Lord has blessed you with such an after all you've been through, such an ennobled father figure. Must be lucky. Like this whole 3 years of fucking did not learn a thing from this person. Wasn't taught a thing about life. And so he's corrective, and he's like, and yeah, Roger's like, so I'm going to correct you and help you become the homosexual you were always meant to be. I'm like, actually, on grounds like trauma, preference, I'm like a girl as a person. Girls have complimented me in the past for being, they have called me emotionally intelligent, things like that, and that's been great because some of them have also noticed that though defensive and protective of my mother and sister, my mum has been a force of stupidity to both my sister and I, especially when she remarries another Christian. We go through the motions again, and then imposing a religious conversion on me will turn me asexual. Will not be able to. I will not be able to gain sexual arousal. I'll start turning aggressive and want to hit males. So I don't understand. Like it's a bit like Roger saying to Stephen Hawking's like, well, I can feel your inner boy, and Stephen Hawking's with my help, I own Capital Chemist. I'll soon have you on your feet. In fact, you'll outdo Christopher Reeves with what we, the Freemasons, believe and what you know as a scientist, and we'll have you out of your chair. You'll be not only fucking women of all sorts, but you'll be flying capes. Um, we're Freemasons. So his response, so this photo that I edited, where I edited my footprint, so that it looked like I was stepping in the, it was like made in symbolism of me defending a lot of persecution, myself from persecution through the art I was making, from persecution in the workplace. And Yeah, there's no like it's immediately legal kidnap. In legal terms, it's his proposed therapy, his proposed ensemble of conflicts were wrong. He got wrong in the first place, and this is due to him lying about credentials, about being a religious scientist and making criminal fuck ups. But they're not like why I would insist that the magistrate consider them and class them premeditative is that he'll try to excuse himself on the basis of faith, but I've already had him challenged on like, well, you know just from scientific method that you can't take Freemasonry just because you have beliefs about it being like the eugenics wars master race of religions to therefore mean that you know better about doctors and the and you know it's your mission to give antipsychotics to people whose hearts might explode from them, and because they're just the rebates are so good, and you call them frogs too, and the rebate, ribbit. But as for him being a ped, uh, so he's then brought up this photo. So that's you standing behind you, is it? I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I think you know what this is about. There's a photo of me at a similar age, 4, having a finger painting of mine showcased in a public mall. And that was my first art showcase. So if some of the art resources that he stole from my property in 2010 were dumped somewhere outside, like I know what it's like to be 4 and be like, well, look, be respectful to this whole shopping mall. Your first finger painting's been shown off here. So I think he knows well and truly, art was my first love, and it's what he likes to use it. The logistics of how he goes about it. See, I was writing a song, parody lyrics to Deborah Harry's song "I Want That Man," and I'm like, second line of the first verse, so I'd change it to something about wanting to cut a knife, use my first knife on Roger's neck, and then on the neck of Roger Tall, and then fuck the wound for the health of you all. And symbolic is the poetry is symbolic of honest truths because I honestly deeply believe this man needs to be in jail, and he's not he should not be recognized as a philanthropic genius. He's a person who, when he's trying to psych ward people, he'll circumnavigate the principle of the fact that he's going against the principle of art. So it doesn't matter if the art is about an art piece portraying pedophiles and he's a pedophile in real life. Which, by the way, I've noticed that, movies I have about pedophiles, he's, interestingly enough, not has nothing to weigh in on about how I might be sick or mentally deluded because of these movies about religious pedophiles. A Freemason pedophile's more fucked in the head than Catholic ones. Yes, they're also harder to catch, and they're using these land rights. Where do you find a Freemason church at the corner of the adjacent street to your uniting churches? And they have some respect for in their mythology. Saint Lucifer's a character they think exists, and so have a think for a moment about where it is you don't want God to send you, Christians, on your flat Earth fucking 2-dimensional map. I believe it's down under. We come from the land down under, so there you go. Whole church areas and religious gathering areas from tunneled underneath where you can't go unless you own a bunch of businesses and are a part of a Freemason trust. But yeah, this guy can get fucked. There's no first of all, and it's only because of privacy of other people. There's no need for me to come out and say anything about homosexual experiences I might have had. Uh, I can say that I would never have it for a second imagined Roger as an attractive person. I'm even off put from money by having been his employee. So there's nothing about him that I like. I wish he was dead or could die in jail after. the audacity for him to pose the question, oh, okay, so that photo is actually you standing behind you, and you did some sort of, yes, I did do digital photography. Of course, I talked about that too. Too busy saying, oh, you're a poof, you're a poof, you're a poof. But his misuse of art in principle is because, see, art interpretation is the act of mentally engaging an artistical production, and then you're using your mind and independent thinking to comprehend meaning, symbolism, interpretation, essentially. Now, taking that away from someone is like the worst robbery of any kind. Uh, and but why Roger gets aggressed towards and motivated to want to make psychiatric profiles out of art is because it's the worst type of two-faced double-mindedness to say I'm a scientist, I'm a man of science, and I'm a man of religion, of a religious church, that if I pitched my scientific eliminative process of the scrutiny and interrogation for logical consistency to my own religious claims, I would have to call myself at best a practicing hypocrite and fraud, and then it's someone who would need to either back off from both avenues of interest, or completely part ways with these social scientific projects we're getting involved in. For every supernatural belief, supernaturalism is not that amazing. Like, it was once supernatural for everyone to believe that if someone has a wound, you should spit on it to cure it. That was a supernatural belief in the Bronze Age. Sea monsters existed too. That was a supernatural belief in the Bronze Age. In a very real way, supernaturalism means beyond nature, to connotative to mean there are things that we don't yet know enough about the naturalistic phenomenology of this or that practice. So so for every social scientist that's got a supernatural faith-based belief system at the same time, there is a corresponding transference of mistakes for them to have rewritten up in psycho mumbo jumbo, and you can do it. It's like the lingo of Willy Wonka, and these are the concealers. So you've got that he's pedophilic. I know that he's pedophilic. I even know that he's said to me, "Oh well, I'm now in my really old age. Do you think on my old age I can be excused?" No. Typically, Roger, old age in a pedophile is somewhat definitive of their pedophilia. You were old when I first met you. So, in this song, this rewriting, because I got the instrumental track for Deborah Harry's "I Want That Man," and I was going to sing about, I wouldn't call them fantasies because it gives him too much of an ego boost from what I know about Roger, but of how it would be like a police officer doing a duty for the health rights of his town, by having the opportunity to completely dehumanize Roger Toll and Gary Cairns in front of everybody. So I was writing, and so he'll gain knowledge of it, and he'll treat it like it was scripture, like that in your mind it's akin to religious scripture. When you're like, don't you understand? I've rejected that on principle. Don't you understand? This is the same. It's the same thing. If you were honest, and you as you taking the staff to Lake Krakenback to play How to Host a Murder. Now that's obviously either that's an art game that you played that was a fiction, or you like to host a murder, or murders. So which is it? If you have this much of a comprehension problem with what art is in principle, you should not have taken the whole company out to play How to Host a Murder at Lake Krakenback Resort. Unless you were trying to say to them, like, hey, who of you wants to help me host murders? So this man is an absolute fuckwit, once again. I do want him to die in jail. There's not enough years in his life to die in a jail after a judge knows about him for it to be just Okay, so the pet, like I was talking about, if those believing in Genesis, the book of Genesis, chapters 1 and 2, are believing that inbreeding not only was it was necessary at the start, but it was an act of like let's build a shrine to Adam and Eve. Like can you imagine like maybe they can think of it in ways like where they were going, well, this is disgusting. We really wish we weren't having to do this, but the species is going to die out unless our unless our own young fucking impregnate their mother Eve. Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel, so Cain, off you go. You need to. So now that leaves Cain going, well, Dad, you can fuck her this week. I'll fuck her next week. We'll try and make as many babies as we can. Just do this. So kids, and then their kids obviously had to fuck each other, and their kids had to fuck each other until they were lucky enough to come up with something called a cousin, and that was like so. But the one thing about why I think religious people take a fascination as they do to suicides, to pedophilia cases, is that it, the pedophile typically doesn't fuck a kid in their own immediate blood group of the family unit, and so that's one element that's actually that digresses them and moves them away from the true disgustingness of the first family of the first man and first woman in the biblical narrative. Is that, well, okay, you had parents fucking their kids, they were all in the same blood family. That is disgusting. That is disgusting. Oh, looks like Rolf Harris was a sellout as an entertainer and fucked around with a bunch of kids. Oh, were they his sons? Were they his no? And then these Genesis equals creation in the Lord's image people actually go, well, maybe we should feel sorry and forgive some of these pedophiles, especially if they can convince us they've re-accepted the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, into their heart. Maybe we should let them go, And they probably will because of purity of bloodline doctrine. Well, Hitler had that too. The next one of you to say that Hitler is to blame for the mind of Friedrich Nietzsche is going to get kicked in the fucking teeth at this point. It's got more. God is with us. Gott mit uns is on the belt buckle of every Nazi soldier. Mein Kampf. By eliminating the Jews, I am doing the Lord's work. Okay, that is not a Friedrich Nietzsche fan who proclaimed God is dead. God is dead. We must now rethink where morals and the ethical life come from without God, because we have killed God. That is what Nietzsche wrote. That is not what Hitler printed on the belt buckles of his soldiers. So for every Christian and Christian generic brand religion that has criticisms to lobby at Hitler's Nazi party, I can name about 5 to 10 more as to why he was more like your religion than he was anything to do with Friedrich Nietzsche. He never met Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche had died before Hitler was born, and Hitler had requested to visit Nietzsche's house. So, get your fucked up, backwards facts gay. I won't say get things straight, because that's not a word that someone like Roger Toll comprehends. Anyway, yeah, I do want these peds face justice. In my case, they've tried to say, well, this kid had his family destroyed at age 5. He's something of a misanthrope. So rather than sitting down and talking through matters with him, even though we've watched him counsel patients about all manner of problems that they've talked to him about for a decade, we don't think that he can talk about his own life at all. I'm like, oh, okay. So and the resources for me to talk to these patients beyond your basic training, which was you calling me a fag. Like, did you notice how I didn't go to any of these patients and say, "Hi, fag. Have you got your concession card, fag? Did you bring your Medicare card, fag? Would you like the less expensive brand of your prescription, fag? Fag poof." So in fact, I was rejecting what they were teaching me